Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the Ferndale City Council meeting for Monday, April 29, 2013. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So before we get into the rest of the meeting, let me just say a couple of words. Five days after City Council met for the last time, our country was once again visited by terrorism, this time in Boston. In fact, several Ferndale residents were in the marathon at the time, and they, along with the other runners and fans, unfortunately got to see firsthand what evil looked like that day. The Ferndale runners are safe, I'm happy to say, but 3 runners were killed that day and 264 others were injured. 3 days later, a police officer was also killed. We're reminded yet again of the sacrifice that we sometimes brutally pay to live in a free and open society, and I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for the victims, their families, and our country. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Galloway.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Piana. Here. Lennon.
Here.
Mayor Coulter.
Here, yes, thank you. We have a full house tonight. Next item of business would be approval of the agenda. Are there any changes, additions to the agenda? City Manager.
I'd like to add on the agenda the relocation expenses for court and the police department for the renovations, please.
I move to adopt the agenda with the addition from our city manager.
Very good. And I'll make that regular agenda C2 because I think it goes with A, B, and C, so we're going to want to talk about those together, so we'll make that C2. Are there any other changes to the agenda? One I would just note is I'd like to add a presentation. We'll make it presentation E, and that is the library is here. They didn't get an opportunity to present their budget to us during budget hearings, so we'll add them as presentation E. So with that, I would need, did you make the motion?
I did, Your
You
Honor.
did, all right.
I'll support.
So moved by Martin and supported by, moved by Lennon and supported by Martin. Any further discussions on the agenda? Madam Clerk?
Councilmembers Galloway.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. Moving on to presentations, the first one is presentation A is the declaration of May 15th, 2013 as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week of May 12th, 2013 as National Police Week. And Chief, do you want to talk about that item?
Thank you, Your Honor, and especially thank you for those kind words about our brothers and sisters in Boston. But on Congress declared the week of that includes the 15th of May of each year, and that week that surrounds that is National Police Week. And that is the day that it is important to all citizens to understand the duties, responsibility, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that all members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against the deception and the weak against oppression. I ask that Council call upon all citizens of Ferndale and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe Wednesday, May 15th, 2013 as Peace Officers Memorial Day. In honor of those law enforcement officers who have, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of their duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. And we will also have a short ceremony on May 15th at 10 a.m. in front of City Hall with our honor guard.
And Chief, we also have that as a resolution supported by Council, so I'll give you that to back to the station. Thank you, Chief. The next presentation is a condolence resolution for Donald Geary. And Mike Lennon, being our police officer emeritus on council.
Well, I worked with both these gentlemen for quite some time next door. I'll be more than happy to.
Okay.
Who's first? Donnie?
Yeah, Donnie.
Donald W. Geary, 60, a retired patrol officer with the Ferndale Police Department and lifelong resident of this city, died April 10th, 2013 in Royal Oak. He was born in Highland Park, July 15th, 1952, to Donald and Dorothy Geary. Don joined the Ferndale Police Department as a cadet July 16th, 1970. After graduating from the police academy, he was hired as a patrolman January 1st, 1973. He retired on August 3rd, 95, and after 25 years with the department. After his retirement, Don worked for the Oakland County Sheriff's Department as a security officer for the Madison Heights District Court. Don was a talented artist and loved playing and composing music. He played with many bands over his lifetime and was a founding member of the local band Yesterday's Children. He loved to bowl and spend time in his backyard with pool, family, and friends and neighbors, and he was Uncle Donnie to everybody. He was a member of the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 130 and a former member of the Ferndale Elks. Don will be missed by many, but especially his daughter, Tammy Hopkins, brother Bob and Terry Geary, and brothers Rick and Terry Geary, and nieces Robin Gary Ross, Rochelle Gary Daniels, and Mackenzie Gary Branch, nephew Bobby Gary Jr. Therefore, be resolved that we, Ferndale elected officials, do by here extend our community's condolences to the family of Donald W. Geary. Do we have support for that? Support?
Unanimous consent. I have a call for unanimous consent. So adopted. Mike, we have another one, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're dropping. They're really going. I think that brings a total of 14 that we worked with, Chief. That are gone. James Dayton Watts, 76, retired lieutenant with the Ferndale Police Department, died April 14th, 2013. He was born in Detroit, April 4th, 1937, to Dayton and Molly Watts. Jim Watts served the United States Air Force during the Korean War. He then settled in Southfield and worked for Chrysler Missile. Jim joined the Ferndale Police Department on September 16, 1959. He was promoted to sergeant December 1st, 1969, detective sergeant July 1st, 73, and lieutenant on September 1st, 74. He retired March 16, 1983, after 24 years with the department. After his retirement, Jim married Diane and moved to Canada and went to work for Morse Tool as a sales manager. He then moved to St. Clair, Michigan, and worked for Rattle Run Golf Course and Black River Country Club in Port Huron. Jim spent his retirement enjoying family, friends, and golf. He was an active member of the National Fraternal Order of Police, Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 130, and American Legion Charles Fulton Post in St. Clair. Jim will be missed by many, but especially by his daughter Kathy and Craig Trusky, sons Jim and Maureen Watts, Tom and Kim Watts, and Edward Ted Watts, sisters Virginia Joy Vanover and Peggy Hugh Tucker, grandchildren Courtney Hannock, Jeff Gamble, Dayton, Mac, Cindy, Mallory, Regan, and Harrison Watts, and great-granddaughter Ellison Gamble. Be it resolved that we, Ferndale elected officials, do hereby extend our community condolences to the family of James D. Watts. Do I have support for that?
For unanimous support.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh.
Who's here?
Wonderful.
Tom. Come on up.
Yeah.
Our mayor will give you. I didn't know you were going to be here, Tom.
Hey, I have nothing prepared. I just heard about this. The chief did tell me he was going to do something like this.
Okay.
And, I just shot over here. I'm a sports writer, and I just stopped over here. If anyone read the column I did on him.
It was a wonderful column in the Oakland. I read it in the Daily Tribune, I think.
Yeah, all the papers. And I just want to say he loved the city of Ferndale. Yeah.
We all do.
Yep.
Thank you. He was a good man.
And that's just it. He loved the city of Ferndale, and I just thank you very much. Yeah. God bless you. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you. All right. Our next presentation is an estimated water bills update. And City Manager, are you going to do that?
As you know, over the last month or two, we've been working through a new system as it relates to our water reading meter system. I think I just probably used a lot of syllables there. But I wanted to offer you an opportunity to hear an update on where we are with everything. It's in particular, last council meeting, there was a lot of concerns related to estimated bills. So Jane Marie Eubanks is our Director of Finance and Assistant City Manager, is here to give an update and where we are with the estimated water bills and kind of an overview of the situation, and we'll go from there. And she'll be here to answer any questions that council may have.
Excellent. Thanks. Jane Marie.
Well, by now you've all received my report of kind of a history of where we've been with both the Elster reading system and the new billing system. Estimated reads have always been with us and always will be with us. There are times when meters cannot be read. We bill about 3,400 accounts a month, and in the past we were getting about 50 estimated reads. Obviously a very insignificant number. As the Elster rollout happened with the new reading system and radio system, we were getting many, many more reads. At one time, they were accelerated to as many as 1,000 reads a month. We had asked for assistance from Elster when we were still getting about 400 reads estimated a month to provide reading services for us, since they had implemented a system that was simply not working. They were doing many of the reads for us, but still not able to obtain all of the reads that we would need before a billing had to go out. So when they upgraded the radio meters, or the radio units at each meter, we started to get actual reads. They had finished doing about half of those for January when we had to get a bill out. They completed February's pretty much in total, although we're still getting between 100 and 200 non-reads. This is actually the first month that we've seen the number drop way down. So I think the time for estimated reads, or at least the volume that we were getting, is behind us, which certainly Lloyd and I are very happy to see. This has been a long and arduous process. There was a question about the bill style. It did change when we upgraded our financial software system. The template bill that came out of the system did not have estimate written on it like the old postcard style did. We have contacted New World, and this month's bills will have estimated in, instead of just showing the MCF usage. An actual read is indicated by the term remote. That means that a remote read or a read from the remote radio system has been obtained. If not, it'll have estimate. The catch-up bills, of course, because we've had estimated bills in some cases for one incident, in some cases 6 incidences, which means a year and a half of estimated bills. There are catch-up in some cases. In some cases, it's related to the estimates. In other cases, it is not. In some cases, we've seen remote reads all along, but we still have an unusual actual reading for this past cycle of billings between January and April. Again, there was no way really to guess how those estimated reads would impact once we got actual reads. In some cases, the estimates were, well, they were all based on prior usage, but in some of the cases, the estimates were close to actual. In other cases, they were not. So there was no real way to guess what that impact would be until the bills actually came out. So we have received many calls from customers asking about why they weren't notified in advance. We've addressed those customers individually as to the timing. So far, everyone has seemed satisfied. We've also discussed payment arrangements for those that received abnormally high bills, or because their catch-up bills have received unusually high bills. And so far, we've made payment arrangements with, many customers. And again, although unhappy, with catch-up bills, as everyone just would rather receive a regular bill rather than a bill that represents something from a year or a year and a half ago. After explaining it, so far everybody has seemed satisfied. They are first contacting water staff if they're not satisfied with the answers water staff has given them. I've been dealing with them individually. Again, the communication, we have been discussing this with water customers. In addition, because the April bill was the last bill where there was a portion of the customers that received long-time estimated bills, we did send out a notice before we sent out those estimated bills to let them know estimations did occur and that there was a payment plan. On those customers with unusually high bills, and those we pretty much determined to be over $1,000, we have made special arrangements that are outside of the scope of the payment plan that Council discussed. And that pretty much is taking care, that pretty much seemed to be the cutoff of, or a natural cutoff between just slightly higher bills and abnormally high. So in summary, DPW, Finance, ELSER staff have been working through this pretty consistently for the last 3 years. It appears that it's behind us, which we're all grateful for and glad to see. But if there are any more questions, I'd be glad to address them.
Thanks, Jamie. I think we have some questions. Mike, you want to?
I just have one. I don't know if you got any inquiries, but I certainly have, as to the service fee of $33. What is it?
And again, when you have other things happening with the system, it seems like everything comes out as a question. We actually had a service fee for a while. We started charging the $33 the last couple years, and that is to recover our capital cost of the system, which if we sold no water, we didn't have to pay Detroit anything or the county anything for the water and to dispose of the water. We would still have our debt service related to capital that we put in over the last decade or so. And what we were finding is with a lot of vacancies, we weren't recapturing what we needed to pay the bills for the system. So we started charging that $33 as, in effect, a readiness to serve or capital recovery. You'll see it called a number of things because most cities are doing it now, charging that readiness to serve. But for us, it's pretty much the charge to recover our debt service, which is about $1.3 million over the course of a year.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of them. Just to follow up on Mike's question, or Councilman Lennon, sorry. The $33 debt service is not related to the installation of the remote. On this is ongoing debt service that goes back 10 years. That's to recover the infrastructure costs of the entire system, not the upgrades we put in.
Correct.
Okay.
Previously, we were charging for residential 5/8 service. We were charging $5.20 a quarter over a course of, it was supposed to be 7 years, and we actually stopped it at year 6. So that started being paid, a number of years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, because it's been gone now for 2 years.
So I know that you said you put a notice in for the April bills for those who had an estimate catch-up bill, correct?
We actually
did a separate
pre-sent out notices for those ones that still had estimated.
But that was just for April, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what's in place for the future? And I know we don't stuff the envelopes here for the water bills, but somewhere along the way, I think what's missing, and I haven't heard it's been corrected, that somebody raises their hand and says, hey, there's a really large amount of bills here, over $1,000, and we get ahead of this before the bills get mailed out and the calls start coming in to the net communication plan. Is there a piece in this process that we've built in that's a QC towards the front end to say something might be up?
Well, I think the major hope with this system and why we were so committed to it 3 years ago is that unlike a normal quarterly bill, where until those reads were taken, we really didn't know what was happening with an individual water bill. This we can see daily use. So you can run a report of anyone within the last month that has unusually high usage and notify them. You know, years ago, were we much more proactive in letting people know when you had unusual usage? Yes, but even with that being said, we were 3 months behind the curve. So we couldn't tell you anytime within that 3 months when the high usage happened, just that it happened sometime in that time. And there was probably a 2-week lag from the time we got the readings till we sent out the bills. So it might be 4 months ago, where with this current system, we're allowed to be a lot more reactive.
So I think that's fantastic, but goes back to my question, and from a process perspective, who's accountable to make sure that gets looked at and that we catch this on the front end and it's not a back end mess later if we do suddenly find something?
Well, it's always been a shared responsibility between finance and DPW. Finance identifies them because DPW didn't have access to the billing software before. So we recognize them, we transfer it to DPW. In the past, DPW would put service cards at people's address notating unusual usage and, you know, please call for a service call. So we will need to go back to that process.
So you'll have a procedure in place that will address that component of it. Okay. I'm really glad on the bills that you're moving back to identifying what's an actual read versus an estimate, but I don't know if the term remote is going to mean anything to somebody on a bill that's an actual read. Is there a definitions page to what remote means?
Well,
or?
The back of the bill, we have created a number of things that people can use as helps of, you know, what does this bill mean? A lot of people don't know when their bills come out. You know, we are on a regular quarterly system, but they don't necessarily translate that to their bill. Your bill actually tells you, your account number tells you when your bills come out, but again, most people cannot translate that information because they don't know. So we have that, and we will change that to address that remote means actual.
That's great, because as clear and as simply as we can state it so people are clear on the bills, I think that would be really helpful. And then, again, just to reiterate, I'm over 3 years, the number of estimates went up like 300%, and that gets identified as early as possible, and there's an escalation procedure, and I know there's a process around that. As much as we can build that into procedures so we're not caught with such a big mess in the future, I'd appreciate whatever you guys can do from that procedural standpoint. So that being said, thank you, and I really appreciate the work you've done the last couple of weeks. I know this has been a big issue, and you've probably gotten a million calls, and so thank you for that.
Other questions? I guess I have just a couple quick ones, Jane Marie. I appreciate that we're building in a payment plan for folks who do have large bills. In the memo that we got, it said that if the payment arrangements are kept and any new bills are paid on time, all penalties will be removed from the account once the customer lets finance know that their bill was brought current. Don't you know when their bill is current or not? What does that require them to do?
But we have 11,000 customers, so short of looking through each account, it really isn't practical, as well as because the problem is big and it's been here for a while, we are allowing the customers to be as flexible as possible in their payment arrangements. So if they should make arrangements for $100 a month and pay it off early, we're just asking that they let us know so that we can take the penalties off. It's actually a function that we have to do, a manual function that we have to do to take the penalties off a single account. So when we're making payment arrangements with the customer, we ask that they call us back. And so far, people have been accepting.
Is that real obvious and clear on your payment agreement arrangement?
Yes,
that you need to make that proactive step to get rid of those penalties? All right. Okay. That's my question. Anyone else? All right, no action is needed. Jane Marie, thank you for all your work on this. Appreciate you coming out tonight and letting us know. Library is up, and it's going to be a Pat and Jessica show, or yeah.
Thank you,
Good
Mr.
evening.
Mayor and Council. I am Patrick Dengate, and here tonight as President of the Library Board of Trustees, along with Jessica Kaiser, our Director. As you might recall, in August of 2004, the Council passed a resolution which created a separate library, no longer a city department. As one of the provisions of that resolution was that the library board come before council once a year and just give you guys an update. So that's what we're here to do. And real briefly, I'm going to touch on some highlights, and then Director Kaiser will talk about some numbers related to our budget. So some highlights for the previous 12 months. We hired a new director. We appointed 2 temporary trustees to fill vacant seats on the board for a full complement of 6. 4 seats, because of the nature of the staggered terms on our board, 4 seats will be on the ballot this November. We completed a comprehensive strategic plan, which included input from people all across the community, the public, elected officials. This plan is not gathering dust in a drawer somewhere or a filing cabinet, but we are closely monitoring how the goals we set are being met as we move along. Ferndale Reads, which was a community-wide event sponsored by the library, included a great many events, a reading-related art exhibit, author talk, book discussions, and 500 free copies of Kurt Vonnegut's novel Slaughterhouse-Five were distributed to the public. We have expanded children's and teen programming over the past year, exhibitions of art in the meeting room, an expansion of the exhibition space within the library's collection areas. We've had presentations from the Detroit Institute of Art. We've worked closely with the Friends of the Ferndale Library and staged just last weekend a very successful fundraiser called Books and Roses. We've accepted an $8,000 gift from the Friends, which they raised through selling used books. The staff has won 2 grants, which we've used to expand programming and also the acquisition of art books. These 2 grants totaled approximately $2,000. Successful programs that continue are First Stop Fridays, the music program, regular film series. We've recently contracted with an outside firm to recover lost materials and large overdue fines, and that's been working out quite well so far. We also started a program called Lucky Day, which makes available multiple copies of high-demand, recently published book materials. So some quick key statistics. We currently have 10,960 active library card holders. Total items in the collection, books in print, 59,608. E-books are 7,509. We have 4,541 movies in the collection. Music and audio books together are 4,505. We subscribe to 110 different magazines. So the total items in the collection are 80,011. Currently, we have 7 full-time employees at the library and 11 part-time employees. Just in the previous quarter, between all areas in the library, we've had 11,044 reference and general questions answered, 12,259 computer sessions on the public computers, and 47,106 adult items have been checked out. That's just in the last 3 months. It's a busy place, lots of great things the staff and our director are putting together, and I want to turn it over to our director now to talk about some numbers, and then we can answer any questions you might have. Jessica.
Jessica, welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so I just briefly put together a couple of charts to show you. Oh, there we go. Just what we're seeing in terms of trends with our budget over the last couple of years and looking forward to the next 2 fiscal years. We're showing major declines in our revenue, and you'll see the bright green is our property tax revenue, and that makes up the vast majority of our revenue. So we really are dependent on the property values in the city to operate. We have state aid there, which you can barely even see because it's such a tiny portion. It's usually about $8,000 a year. So we really do not get very much at all from the state in terms of financial support. And then other is everything else, including our fundraising efforts and our fees for services, overdue fines, lost materials. So really, we're very dependent on property taxes, but you can see our other category is growing, and that is due in large part to our fundraising and grant writing efforts. And we're hoping that that will continue to grow, but we do recognize there is a certain limit to that category, and ultimately it's up to our property tax income to support us.
How big a portion is that of personal property taxes?
Personal property tax for us is total about $80,000, I believe, for the current fiscal year. So that's a pretty significant portion that we're looking at seeing go away or be reduced pretty significantly.
And this changes from Lansing to eliminate the personal property tax, and we're not exactly sure how that's going to be replaced, if it is at all, correct?
Correct, and that's really the big question that we're all facing. I was actually at a conference on Friday where the Lieutenant Governor was present, and he addressed that topic. The elimination is tie-barred with a statewide vote to enact authority. I'm trying to think of the name of the authority that they're trying to, they're basically trying to bypass the appropriations process and make it local, but we're not going to be expecting a dollar-for-dollar replacement, and it's really not entirely clear how much we can expect for replacement, if anything at all. But if the statewide vote in 2014 does not pass, then the elimination of personal property tax will not go through. So we're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see how that will play out. And this is just a pie chart to show you what our library expenses look like, and they tend to stay pretty consistent from year to year. We need a certain level of staff to run the building and offer the services that we have, and that takes up about 45% of our budget. Books are about 10%. Our bond repayment for our beautiful renovated building is about 30% of our budget, and then building is 8%, and everything else makes up about 7%. So the goals that we have are to continue to improve our services and materials and programming that we offer to the public, and we have those goals outlined in our strategic plan in great detail. Our biggest challenge, in essence, is really to meet the increased demand for materials and services as our revenues are simultaneously decreasing. And we are continuing to work with our board fundraising committee and library friends to expand our fundraising efforts. And now we'll take your questions.
Jessica, I know last year we looked a little bit at your fund balance and how that's helped sustain you and how much longer it had. Given those sort of numbers, I don't have your actual budget in front of me, but what is it looking like in terms of how long would that continue until you depleted that?
Well, the original budget that our library board approved would take about $45,000 out of the fund balance next year. But with the revised revenue projections, which are a little bit lower, if we don't make any changes, that would be more like 100,000. So right now, our board committee is working to see where we could possibly realize any savings that would have as little impact on the public as possible. But
possibly 100 this year.
For 2014.
For 2014.
Yeah.
Out of a fund balance of what?
About 500,000.
About 500.
Yeah. So we're definitely facing challenges, and we are looking for ways to save money on our expenses in any way possible without having to eliminate hours or services. That's our goal.
Other questions of council?
May I ask then, the statistics you presented, the 59,000 books that were checked out, the 7,000 ebooks or what have you, how does that trend from previous years about? I know you said it was more, but is it 10% more? Is it 5% more?
Off the top of my head, I couldn't answer that exactly off the top of my head, but in terms of percentage, but it's definitely growing every year. Last year, if I remember correctly, it was just over 100,000 items circulated over the course of the whole year. So we're showing a big, rapid increase, and we're really busy from the moment we open until we close at night.
Thanks.
Very good. Thanks for coming. Sorry we didn't get you in during the budget hearing, but appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. All right, that is our last presentation. The next item of business then would be a public hearing, and this would be a public hearing for the fiscal year 2014 and fiscal year 2015 budget and consideration to adopt the same. So I would like to open the public hearing now. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address council on our 2014-2015 annual budget? Sure.
Hi, my name is Michael Valentine. I'm on 151 Jewel Street. One thing I was curious about concerning the budgets, I see that in the city of Berkeley, they hired a new city attorney under a different contract. And I was just kind of curious, looking at what we're paying in the budget, it's about $225,000. We've not renegotiated or opened this since 1998. And from looking at that, they're paying $60,000 for that. So what I was curious about is, obviously Ferndale's a little bit larger of a city, but it appears that we're paying about 3 times as much, considering issues with the library and that. I'm just wondering if that could be reopened possibly, and we could find some room for potential savings. So,
what is the scope of work that Berkeley Attorney is providing?
There's an article about it. If you take a look at the Woodward Talk, March 27th issue, states there, Mr. Price concentrating his practice on local government, zoning, land use, construction law, business, general commercial litigation. So.
Yeah, well, the attorney's, Berkeley's attorney, of course, is ours as well.
Sure.
And I think the scope of work is perhaps a bit broader for the city of Ferndale, isn't it?
Okay. Like I say, I was just curious about this. I realize that, this has not been examined or reopened since 1998, so I'd just like that to be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Anyone else like to address council this evening on the budget? All right. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on the budget, and I would ask April to introduce this item once again.
Okay.
We spent obviously a lot of time on the budget over the last month and a half, so this is not new to any of us, but
the other one. It's final numbers.
Your final numbers and recommendations.
Yes. As you know, we've had 3 budget workshops. We had one on April 2nd, April 8th, and April 15th to go over what was, to all of us, a little surprising at the deficit that we were faced with. We started this process with a $900,000 deficit for 14 and over $2 million for 2015. So through a series of, like I said, 3 meetings and conversations of how we could manage this process, what we have before you is the final recommendations. We are still not out of concerning property values. They dropped again to almost 6% this year, which unfortunately we were hoping would steady off at only a -1 this year, and then hoping for 14 and 15 to be stable at 0. But as you know, that with a 6% drop in this current fiscal year, that we had to move forward with 2015 or 14 with an assumption that they would drop again, maybe in half by 3%. So even with some adjustments with the Headley, we still actually this year and next year could potentially dip into fund balance depending on how the budgets shake out. So what you have before you is all of the recommendations that we made over the course of the last 3 days. And taking in 2014, we're actually ending with a $178,000 deficit that we'll take out of general fund balance. And as you know, that conversation was approving to continue for another 6 months or through January or December 31st, the 4 grant-funded firefighters, so that we could have more of an opportunity to see what other kinds of fire service that we could bring, as well as save money as it relates to the fire department. So that was agreed upon during those budget workshops to go ahead and take that out of fund balance. And again, that's just through December 31st. That was a grant-funded, 4 grant-funded positions. And then in 2015, we had a much greater deficit. And what you have before you is a conversation that we'll have in just a second on 2015. So again, even with the potential for the Headley override, if you will, we're still seeing significant adjustments that need to be made within our budget, not only for 14, 15, but going on to 16. So with that, let's talk about where we ended. We are currently in the fiscal year with the Headley at 3.5 mils, and in fiscal year 2014, it was recommended, as you know, we're backing up for just a second, we're now in a 2-year, we are now doing biannual budgets. So every 2 years, we keep rolling so that we're always looking ahead. So this current fiscal year, we were at 3.5 mils, and last year when we adopted the budget for 14, we looked at a 4.60 millage rate. We, of course, would have loved to come back and say we can lower that, but unfortunately, as you know, it was difficult to get to the budget levels that we did, so we needed to maintain our recommendation of 4.60 mils. In fiscal year 2015, as you know, during the times that we met for workshops, there was no voting because it was just work sessions. So I have to say, for fiscal year 2015, as it relates to the millage rate, there was 2 things that we talked about. If we moved it to 5.45 mils, which is now at that point all of the place we have left to go up in the millage, we would still end up at this point with a deficit of $420,000 that we'd have to take from fund balance. Or we could keep it at 4.60 mils, and it would bring us to we still have a deficit for 15 of about 800,000. So as I was going through and preparing this report in this budget, we presented you the 5.45 mils, which is, however, there was such a long conversation on so many things that it wasn't really clear which council preferred. So we felt that bringing you the 5.45 mils was what we brought to you, which is again dipping into fund balance about 400,000. Now, no matter what, whether we keep it at 4.6 or we move it to 5.45, this is fiscal year 2015. So we have next year to, this is just, even though you approve this budget, you formally adopt it in 2015. So we have opportunity to change that, as well as it would be, we will be working with staff to bring back recommendations to also lower that deficit level as well, as much as we can within this next year to prepare for 2015. So that will have to be a discussion point here at the table. But the other rates up there, I'll talk about those very briefly, ended with our general obligation bonds, if you know, are the road and infrastructure bonds that we have, and those millage rates have to meet the needs of the yearly payment that we have. So again, as we talked about throughout these workshops, the property values affect every part of our budget, not only in general fund, but in the other enterprise funds as well. And you'll note that throughout a lot of the budget book. So we will be looking at fiscal year 2014 at 7.7 mils for the general obligation bonds, and then in fiscal year 2015, 7.9. Sanitation, we have to move that up about $10. Again, property values drop, service levels are remaining the same, so we had to increase those rates slightly. And then water and sewer rates, we are keeping those stable for 2014 and maintaining the current MCF rate of $110. So again, if you recall, we have been really moving toward the biannual budget so that we can continue to be prepared, but that gives us an opportunity to focus for 2 times on, on one particular year. So we were able to focus on fiscal year 2015, but our main focus was 2014 for this current budget year. And so now we have this next year to try to prepare for making adjustments to 2015 to be a little more palatable. Any questions?
So just so I understand, we are adopting tonight a fiscal year in 2014, but also a 2-year budget that shows us what is going to happen in 2015. What we need to do essentially to develop a balanced budget in 2015 if everything stays equal. So if there are significant changes in the tax law in Lansing, if property values take a dramatic swing upward or downward, if other things happen, those numbers for 2015 are going to be in flux. Whatever we do this evening as far as adopting a budget, in fact, isn't going to actually determine once and for all what happens with 2015, because we set our taxes, our tax millage rate and water fees once a year. We send that form to the state, and then they register that. We're going through that exercise as part of this budget we adopt this evening, and then that just covers through fiscal year end 2014. Next summer, the city will have to do the same thing for 2015, and that number could be the number that we put into the 2015 budget tonight, or it could be a totally different number based on those changed circumstances. But based on what we know now, in order to reach a balanced budget without dipping into the fund balance in an amount that we've considered disagreeable or unacceptable in the past, we would have to have a 5.45 millage increase. Is that
correct?
Yeah, I mean, and just sort of to comment on that, because when I first became mayor, I sort of took from Oakland County what I learned, which is this multi-year budgeting. And yes, only the first year's budget is required by law, and we send on to Lansing. So the second year really does become the planning tool, and it shows you. But the good thing is it forces us to have this conversation now, not next year, that nothing changing, that's what it's going to look like. Correct. So you're absolutely right, and it's just a good red flag to say things aren't getting better, certainly at the predictions that we're getting now. We've got a year to figure out how we can adjust that millage rate based on the things that we do. But I think it's a helpful tool, even though it's not necessarily a legal tool, to force us to have this conversation. So, yep, just reiterate what you said. I saw you have nothing else on the budget, right?
Not really. No. What you have up there, you have is what is in your resolution.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to readjust fiscal year 2015, that would be the only amendment you would need to make.
And obviously, we have had 4 budget sessions and many, many hours of this, so it's public's wondering why we're not going through this page by page today. It's because we already have.
This will be our 4th discussion.
That's correct. So, council, any comments or questions on the budget?
I just have a clarification. In the drug forfeiture money, the $3,000 that's in membership and dues, is that the youth assistance money? Mm-hmm. All right. I'm sure why I didn't go in grants, but I guess it doesn't matter as long as it's there.
Double check.
Okay, thanks.
I guess we haven't really talked about this sort of from a higher level, but one observation I have is that we actually did a pretty darn good job last year of budgeting. We were headed at the 1% decline in property values that we had been told by Oakland County we could expect. We'd have been right there. We'd have been right on what we budgeted. And if it were not for the fact that ended up being 6% property decline, and that we lost the SAFER grant for another $400,000, our budgeting would have been actually
very close.
Dead on last year. But these things are, these this is what we save money for. This is why we have fund balance and contingency funds. And I want to ask you, so for next year, are we already beginning to get projections from Oakland County or others as to what property values will be? And I know we're taking maybe a little different, more conservative tack. But what are we being told will be next year's?
Jim Marie, do you want to talk a little bit about what information we get and we gather and what times of year those comes in? It does make a difference.
Okay.
The county publishes a report over the whole county. Now, their estimate for next year is a 1% reduction.
A 1% reduction.
Because we have been so far behind their normal curve, and because they told us we would end up with 1% this year, and it ended up being so much worse.
Right.
We actually projected it more conservatively next year at 3%.
At 3%. And that's the point I wanted to make. So we're being told 1% again, decline.
Yeah, I'm not sure we believe they're 1% anymore.
But once bitten, twice shy. So we're actually building in a 3% decline just for budgeting purposes. So, if there is a rebound that's greater than anticipated, that will make those numbers look better.
I would be thrilled if
But we're going to budget conservatively. That's right. All right. Thank you.
Typically in March, when the Board of Review is completed, then we get our final numbers. So when staff is doing these budgets in January and February, we're going based on really those assumptions. And it wasn't until about the end of March that we had the final numbers. And then we just started meeting in April. So
one other question on that. When we get from is it the county assessing office that tells us what our values were? Is that similar to how a resident could argue that their assessment is different than we give them? Can we appeal to Oakland County our taxable value?
Well, given that the process for determining values is based on sales, I'm going to say probably not. They actually do 2-year study, except in the distressed market. They do a 1-year study of what the sales have been. So they determine values based on neighborhoods, so what the sales has been in the neighborhood. So given that each individual property, 11,000 properties, including personal property, have been already valued by the county, I don't know of any process that you would.
You don't know of a process that exists. Okay.
But it's not just our values, correct? I mean, we've got surrounding communities and their values that impact.
Well, given that the valuation is done by neighborhood,
right.
Do surrounding neighborhoods have an impact on us as well? Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Other questions?
I have some general comments and some questions. I really applaud the effort that went into this. I think this is the best presented budget I've ever seen. It's laid out really well, and I actually think it's very easy to understand from someone who doesn't pay attention to city finances every day. So thank you for restructuring our budget so it's easy to read.
And it's also, if I'm not mistaken, on the website, right? So residents, right on the front page, can go and click on our easy-to-read budget and see all of the facts that we see.
They can also see a hard copy at the library and at City Hall upstairs in the front desk.
Excuse me, but just on that point, I wanted to make sure we mentioned that.
I think from my perspective, I just wanted to put it out there and just sort of recap of where I am with this. When we asked the voters to approve a Headley override, it was in the hopes and dreams that the financial situation would change, and we're sort of midstream of the 5-year term before the Headley sunsets, and it was my hope that we would be able to decrease our millage rate and not have to go to the entire Headley cap, or right, over the 20 mills. And based off of the 2-year projections, we are unable to do that. And with the other bond renewal coming up with our roads, we have some really serious strategic decisions to make about what we really need to invest in to keep our fund balance at
15%, and so our choices are just getting harder. But we're committed, to doing the right thing. So I applaud that effort as well. I do have some questions about the fee schedule. I didn't know if that was, usually we approve a fee schedule separately, and is that coming, or is that included?
That will come.
That will come?
By May or June, before the fiscal year starts.
Okay, and I guess I didn't bring it up during the budget meetings prior, but I was wondering what type of revenue we're bringing in for the commercial resource allocation and emergency planning program. It is highlighted on page 15 of the budget book, but I don't think it was really called out in the budget line item, so I wasn't really, so it said significant revenue highlights for fiscal year 2013 and fiscal year 2014, and it's a section on the commercial resource allocation and emergency planning program. It's a program that requires an operational permit for any commercial use that aligns with the city's zoning ordinance with a building, within a building.
Hang on one second, I can tell you. As soon as I find it.
As you look to that,
thank you.
I think we need sort of to revisit some of the intent and purpose of this program.
Sure.
I know you and I have gone back, the city manager and I have been going back and forth with a particular business owner on some of the, why this program came to be, and I think there are some things that we need to adjust a little bit in order to make that better. And so I'm worried about the fee schedule.
Okay.
Because it went from $35 to $100, and that, is over a 50% jump. So going back to my question is, what type of revenue are we raising through this program?
Sure. And we can do that. I think that conversation was, we've had that conversation, I think, with many of you. It's time to revisit. And I know that this will be the first full fiscal year, actually not even the first full fiscal, starting in September, that the fire department has had to do that. I can't seem to find it on here, but I know that they're looking at trying to bring in between $75,000 and $90,000 per year on that program. And so far, if they were to have a whole year, they'd be on track for that. But we can revisit that during the fee schedule and have that a bigger conversation.
I also think there's some operational things that we need to talk about as well.
Okay.
I'll just give one example. Business owners got a letter to participate in this program, but if they were on the West 9 Mile, the Livernois project, they didn't get a letter about that project. So their landlord did, but the business didn't. So it seems like they're getting letters if we need to collect money from them, but they're not getting letters if we're actually trying to give them information.
Okay.
So there might be a disconnect.
For the occupant and the owner?
Yeah,
okay.
Between occupant and
Sure.
owner. I know that's not relevant to the budget, but I thought it was important to bring up.
We can be sure to highlight that during the fee schedule.
Any other comments, questions on the budget? If not, a motion would be in order.
I would move that we adopt the biennial budget for fiscal years 2013 to 2014 and 2014 to 2015 as submitted by the city manager on April 29, 2013.
I support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Piana. Any last discussion?
Well, I just want folks to know that even though the SAFER grant expired at the end of this fiscal year, council's decided to dip into that general fund budget and keep those folks around in hopes of coming up with that solution. So,
I think there's a tough budget, just to pile on that. I think that that there are some good decisions. We didn't raise water rates. We're dipping in to continue to keep the fire for a little bit, and they're tough calls, but we're still trying to provide the best service we can with this. So, and I think that's communicated in this budget.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The budget is adopted. The next item of business would be call to audience. This is...
Mr. Mayor, there's two resolutions we need to cover there.
Whoops, I did, didn't I? Never mind. Hold on, audience. There's a couple of motions that we need, or a second motion that we need, correct? So I would entertain the second motion.
I move to adopt the appropriations resolution setting tax rates, water sewer rates, and sanitation fees for fiscal years 2013 and 2014 to 2015, as submitted by the city manager on April 29th, 2013.
Is there support? Support. Moved by Lennon and supported by Martin. Any discussion on that motion? Madam Clerk.
Council members Piana,
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Galloway.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. And now we are to call the audience, which is 30 minutes now, more time if needed at the end of the meeting for audience members to talk about anything they want. It's not on the agenda because I'll give you an opportunity to talk about that when we get there. 3 minutes. State your name, your address, and anything you'd like to say. And I see Dennis is first in line.
Dennis Augustin, 1550 Spencer.
Good to see you.
I didn't see your State of the City address on the website. Must have missed it or something, but I read all about it in the paper.
Okay.
The Clean Sweep, and speaking as a contractor and a person who's gone looking for property from time to time, on Operation Clean Sweep here, I think all the cities need to become more open to giving people information about what's gone on with the city in the past years. I'll say that. The reason I say this is because when people have wanted to improve properties, such as like I just had a set of plans that was approved by the city of Ferndale's building department, but we couldn't do nothing. Why? Because lo and behold, we found all kinds of stuff buried in this guy's backyard, and we couldn't go down the necessary 42 inches for the footings that were needed. It was just a deck, so obviously you don't pull in no cranes or anything like that. But it's not the first time that I have come across this, in that myself, my property, costing me some extra money in cement. Why? Because when stuff came out of the ground, it was 6, 8, 10, 12 cinder blocks still mortared together, buried in the ground. Bricks, okay, and this old asphalt siding. Well, I had heard rumor that long ago, when things started really going good right after World War II, that the first 5 blocks all along 8 Mile was more or less a dumping ground for where the construction crews could get rid of their debris. Now, this customer of mine over here on Bennett, okay, we couldn't go any deeper than this. And it wasn't just because of one tree. There was cement buried in there. He went out on a limb, besides giving me a deposit for this project, he went out on a limb and took some more money out of his own pocket, went and rented a post hole digger, and dug around in his yard, and suddenly found out he couldn't go at the deepest point in his backyard. Okay. I took 3 years to find out information on my property. Okay. If people want to take and improve their properties, the city's building departments need to be more open and know exactly what's going on, what's happened with this city, and then so these people can make improvements. Operation Clean Sweep, my understanding is you want to go through the city and you want to help people, point out things on their properties and stuff like that. Me, for right now, I got to say no to that, because it took me 3 years to get information on my property, and guess what? That flood that they told me that happened here at the City Hall, we must have had some really good filing cabinets, because my stuff was pulled right off the top drawer when I finally did get it. Okay? And this is not just Ferndale either, okay? It's a lot of cities. So my apologies to the people in the audience for taking up their 3 minutes.
No apology necessary. Matt, good evening.
Good afternoon, Council. Good afternoon, people of Ferndale. My name is Matt Nowatzik, 226 East Oak Ridge, poor man's Oak Ridge, and I am here. I am here to mention Clean the Ferndale Up, which will be held in our fine city on May 11th. At 8:30 a.m., we'll be doing registration at City Hall. And for you, those of you who don't know what it is, it's a day of activism in Ferndale where we take ownership of beautification and we try to make our town a little bit better by giving up approximately 3 hours to do projects throughout town. We have several projects lined up this year that are really exciting. Additionally, we'll be doing 13 walking routes throughout town to pick up refuse on all the major thoroughfares in town. So if you volunteer 3 hours, you will get a free T-shirt, half off lunch at a restaurant that day, and half off ice cream at a local business. I'd be remorse for not mentioning two other things. One, registration can be done at Ferndale Patch, and that'll kind of give me a head count so we can prepare for people to come on May 11th. Additionally, I want to say to April, your city staff and some of your colleagues have been fantastic. I've been working with Sean Slocum, Michael Larry, Jill from Parks and Rec, and everyone's been fantastic. Making this event really a reality. So I know a lot of times we hear the negative of government. I just wanted to sometimes say, you know, this was a time it went right. And lastly, I want to thank some of the businesses, Credit Union One, Allied Printing, and several other businesses like the Emory, because, you know, this is one of those opportunities where it's a private partnership where, you know, it's really dependent upon the money of our fine businesses to kind of help finance an activity like this. So thank you. Have a good day.
And Matt, we want to thank you for organizing it. It's a great event, and we appreciate it. Good evening.
Sherry Wells, 315 West Troy. And this past weekend, we had Family Fun Dale, downtown Ferndale. And there's two more parts to that old project. And one of them is Shopping for Mom. There will be a punch card available at each one of the participating shops, and if someone gets all 6 of them punched, they can go down to Bloom's by JR Designs and get half off a Mother's Day bouquet. As I'm looking at this, I'm suggesting maybe the mom needs to scout all these things, get the punch card, and then say, okay, this is what you get from me here, here, and there, and pick up the bouquet. Bloom's will be open later in those evenings next week and on Mother's Day for some of these last-minute people who come in on Mother's Day to get something. The participating stores first, Reed Salon, 2 years ago, on the recommendation of another Rotary member, I had Sally at Reed Salon give me a style and made it look much better than the long hair I was hesitant to give up, and so I was very pleased with that. So this year, I have gone to Le Host Hair Group, and Leisha did this, and I think she did a fine job. It was fun to watch her look at my hair and then ask me questions about my life, and then her eyes started shining like, I think I've got it for her. Even though that is owned by an African-American couple, they can do all kinds of hair, not just black, white, blonde, brown, African-American, but also white folks and Asian. What is also really special about that place is they have private rooms in there for special needs people who have alopecia or cancer treatment where they're having the hair loss. And so they have privacy for people who are getting their hair worked on there. Sharing that same place is Les Bling. Shonda Hill has jewelry, purses, and some items that she makes herself. Those sell first. Speaking of ethnics, Twisted Shamrock, you don't have to be Irish to buy something there or to buy for someone who's Irish. There's all kinds of charming and clever things. And the clothing there is very suitable for Michigan because our weather is pretty similar to Ireland, especially when it gets its most miserable, but you can look very pretty with that. Speaking of clothing, Dangerous Curves on the same side of the street down towards Easy Like Sunday has sizes 12 to 24. That LaShawna has, and it's wonderful to walk by her window because she has different dresses out there all the time. And Elegance by Design is one of my favorite places. It changed that side of West 9 Mile Road so much when it moved in. They have photographs in their furniture that I've seen in the store that has now found a new home that has a wonderful atmosphere that's been created by Dan and Jacqueline for that furniture and the whole surroundings for that room. We have some wonderful places in downtown Ferndale. One more word? Okay. And then on Mother's Day itself, Dino's, which starts at 8, and Como's at 10, and Woodward Imperial at 11 to take Mother out for a brunch so she doesn't have to cook. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Suzanne Janik. I live at 482 East Hazelhurst, been a Ferndale resident for 15 years now. I know that council has been asked several times to look into the development of a Ferndale dog park. I'm recently getting a rescue dog. I'd like to make the appeal again. I did notice that most of the parks are leash only, and most of the large areas that are fenced in have strict signs that say no dogs allowed. I did notice the public works yard that's near the high school has lots of unused land that might be an opportunity to be fenced off in order to make use of the land for the dogs and create a little revenue coming in.
Yep.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Hello. Hi, my name is Sharon Chaps. I live at 1119 Earl Boulevard. And I'm here to talk about everybody's favorite topic, parking. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I was lucky enough to be gone most of the winter when all of this was implemented.
You missed out.
Yeah, really. And not to say that my only two experiences have not been pleasant experiences. The first time I was in the parking lot behind Hambo's and Fly Trap, and it was a cold, blustery, sleeting kind of day, and I memorized my parking number, which was right there, you know, a positive. And I made it to the machine, and I was reading all of the prompts, which I thought I read correctly. And I put in my 50 cents because I thought that I would be at least an hour at Hambo's having lunch. And when I was ready to go and freezing, it didn't accept my 50 cents and it wouldn't refund it. And so fortunately, the parking person was there. So I knocked on his window and said, I'm in 5312. I put in my 50 cents. It didn't register and it won't refund. I don't want a ticket. He remembered it and he said, don't worry, honey, go have your lunch. But when I turned away from him, there was an elderly woman in the same position there. She's clutching her babushka in her coat, and she's like this, and she says, honey, can you help me? And it's the last thing I wanted to do because I was freaking cold. But I helped. And she's going, I'm supposed to be meeting my friends for lunch, but I can't figure out how to do this. So I did it for her. But in the meantime, there are 3 not properly clad young women waiting their turn in line to do the parking machine. So me not having success the first time, had a slow time trying to get it for this woman. And then another young man comes up between. So it wasn't a positive experience. And the elderly woman says, I'm going to tell my girlfriends that I'm not going to come here again because I don't know how to do this. And so I went to Hambo's, had lunch, not a big deal. So then my next bad experience was I was at Affirmations for Pride meeting.
1 minute.
Yeah, Pride meeting, and it was thundering. It was lightning. It was beginning to rain, but hadn't really started to storm. There were already 3 people behind Affirmations standing in line. To me, with the lightning and the thunder, it didn't make sense to be standing in line waiting for that. So I chose not to. I got my ticket. I will pay it. But I just thought it was improper. Also thinking then that there's no protection for somebody when the weather is that bad. Being surrounded by metal and you have lightning doesn't seem to be safe. Somebody like my husband with a hearing aid isn't going to want to stand out in inclement weather like that because it will be affected. So that's that. So then I go a few days later.
3 minutes, Sharon.
Okay. A few days later to pick up my printing in Berkeley. Berkeley's hopping like crazy. I talked to my printer, wow, Berkeley's looking really good. And he says, yeah, it is. He says, businesses are really booming. And he says, and it seems to be because people are so frustrated with Ferndale parking. And that was like the icing on the cake for me. I don't want us, I want all communities to thrive, but not on our back. And so that was like, okay, I'm coming to council. Parking still isn't working. And I think we need to come up with better ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address council this evening?
Good evening. Chris Hughes, Communications and Marketing Manager for the Ferndale DDA. I'll be as quick as I can. I just want to inform everybody that we have a very big kickoff for a very big project that the city and the state and all of us have invested in the west part of town, and that's the West 9 Mile Streetscape Phase 4 project and water main replacement. And it's going to start Wednesday night with our groundbreaking and our community roundup. So we'd like to invite everybody to come. It will be at 918 West 9 Mile. You'll see these little cool little gold star things. This little pin that I'm wearing will be the hottest new item in downtown Ferndale. It's called How the West Was Won, and it's to ask us how, because we know that coming up is 6, 7, 8 months of orange barrels in our downtown, but we're trying to make the best of it, and we will make the best of it because we've got a great community. So on May 1st, we have the roundup and groundbreaking. We'll also be providing some shovels so everybody can dig in. Many of you will be attending and helping us get things rolling on that. On May 5th, which is Sunday, this is not an event for anybody to partake of, but you need to be aware that they will be doing the big flush of the water main on 9 Mile in an effort to get that ready for the water main replacement that will start shortly thereafter. I don't know, Lloyd from DPW may be filling you in more on that as time goes on, but that's Sunday at 7 a.m. So if you experience a little glitch in your water pressure, that's going to be what caused that. On May 6th, for people that can't make the May 1st open house and roundup, you can come to the DDA office, and we're going to have a full presentation there so that you can learn everything about it. We're providing with our businesses a survival kit so that they can get through that time. We want all of our downtown users to know to come downtown, shop West 9, shop all of 9 Mile during that time period. On May 13th, you'll start to see things really take shape down there in terms of the orange barrels will start appearing. There'll be construction machinery. There'll be bigger shovels than this as we start to do the dig, and we will start to remove the street lights, which are going to be gone through September as we replace things, and we've got a program in place to get our businesses to light up their property. So I just wanted to make everybody aware that May 1st is a big deal. Come on out, join us. It's something to be celebrated, because once you invest in your downtown like that, it increases property values and it makes everything better and unites everything, which is why we call it How the West Was ONE. Aside from that, on May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, the Metro Times Blowout is coming to downtown Ferndale. We got 10 great venues, 100 different bands. We'll be at the Rust Belt Market, the DDA, with a fundraiser. We're going to be serving beverages. So come to the Rust Belt Market and see us and fundraise for the art in our city. But there's also 9 other venues where you can go. They're listed on our website, as usual, downtownferndale.com. And that's the end of my 3 minutes, and have a great week. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris. See you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday. 6 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, 6 p.m. on Wednesday over on West 9 Mile. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening. Craig Covey, 276 West Breckenridge. And as the weather has finally gotten nice and we have all these events starting in May, I want to share the first major festival of the season. So in addition to orange barrels, there'll be rainbow flags downtown. June the 1st is Ferndale Pride 2013. It's only 32 days away, which is kind of scary. But we're pretty excited. We have the largest number of sponsors yet this year. We are at the deadline for sponsors, so if there are any last-minute folks that want to be involved, it's pretty exciting. Motor City Casino Hotel, of course, is our naming rights sponsor. But Congressman Gary Peters has come on as a sponsor. We're kind of excited about that. We have some time left for booths. If organizations, businesses, nonprofits, church groups, school groups, anyone's interested in a booth rental, applications are available. Vendors, applications available, food vendors as well, and we still need more volunteers. We have about 60 so far. We'd like to have 100 volunteers, and to get any of those things, you simply go to the website, which is ferndalepride.com. I also want to share that in 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be finally presenting the annual Ferndale Blues Festival Awards. It takes us this long to recover from the Blues Festival, just in time for the Blowout Festival. But we have collected all the funds, and I'm pleased to announce, and we'll announce this in 2 weeks, that we've exceeded. It'll be the largest successful fundraiser for the Blues Festival, along with some pretty neat awards. So thank you, Sherilyn, for helping us register that for the meeting. And then finally, last Tuesday, Commissioner Nash and I and staff came up over to Ferndale and put on a town hall meeting for the oil and gas exploration information and fracking. I just want to thank Marty McGrath, who's a fantastic staff person, was here to help us tape the whole thing. And we had standing room only. So regardless of where you might be on the issue, we certainly brought education to the town. And I was very proud, Mr. Commissioner Nash was very proud to be here in Ferndale. And again, we filled this room. So I appreciate the council and the staff in allowing us to do that. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ed Allison. This is my wife, Kevin. We live at 621 West Saratoga Street. And we're here on behalf of the Michigan Fallen Foot Float. We were here last year. We're going to have an encore performance. I became aware of this wonderful thing 3 years ago and have been involved ever since. And it's a special thing to me because I am a Vietnam era vet. And I remember the way things worked when we came back. And this event really honors those people who've been involved with that. And this event is to honor those who gave their lives. And it's to honor not just them, but their families, those ones who have those empty places at their tables and those empty hearts. And I think us in Ferndale, being a part of the 95-year-old Ferndale Memorial Parade for our 5th year is an exciting thing. And I wanted to encourage everyone to be involved with it. Last year we had about 235 people involved with signs and banners. We're looking for 300. We've improved our website. We've got to the point where you can get all the information necessary to be involved. You can volunteer. You can give money. But we really need people to carry the signs and be involved there. Our website now has been, as I said, upgraded to where it's easier to use, and that site is mifallenfootfloat.com. It's a very interactive site.
mifallenfootfloat.com.
Yep. Michigan, MI, abbreviated, fallenfootfloat.com. Within that website, there's a paragraph that very succinctly describes what we're trying to do. The Michigan Fallen Foot Float is made up of people who are remembering our fallen heroes by providing an active and honorable tribute to those who have died in the Iraq-Afghanistan conflicts from Michigan or assigned to a Michigan military unit through participation in the Ferndale Michigan Memorial Day Parade. We strive to honor veterans and all who have served our country through action wherever possible. I think you'll find it a very moving and special thing. If you've not been involved with it before, just come watch. We've seen people weeping. We've seen people applauding. It's a very moving and wonderful thing to do to pay tribute to those who've given their lives for our country. Thank you for your time.
It is very moving. Thank you for your involvement with it. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a soldier from Ferndale.
Yes.
To mention, Matthew Leach, and we're going to emphasize him in our float this year.
Wonderful. Thank you. Come on up.
Hello, I'm Linda Jackson, 1327 West Marshall. And I'm Judy Donlin from West Drayton. And we're here tonight to extend an invitation to everybody on the council and everybody in the Ferndale community. The Ferndale High School Band Spring Concert this year is on Saturday, May 18th at the Ferndale High School Auditorium at 7 o'clock. Every year the band, orchestra, and choir concerts are exceptional. This year it's very unique though, so we wanted to come and let everybody know about it. We have an alumni band that's also going to be there, so anybody who is interested in being in that should contact Ferndale High School. But also, the high school band has had a piece of music commissioned exclusively for Ferndale High School band. And the composer is Ira Hershen. He's in Hollywood now. He grew up in the Metro Detroit area, but he'll actually be here for the concert, which is a very special thing for us. So we hope to see everybody there. There's no admission. That makes it even better.
Even better.
Yeah.
And we have little postcards if you'd like to have a reminder for your refrigerator.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll take those, and you can leave some on the back table if you want to for folks who come here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Chief.
I also have an announcement that has something to do with the high school, and I live on West Oak Ridge. The rich Oak Ridge.
I knew he was going to say that.
I would actually like to invite, although we all know the band is very important at the high school, but with shrinking budgets and cooperation, the Ferndale football program as well as the baseball program and the soccer program have all combined to have a fundraiser that is one of the cheapest, easiest things that you can do. On Saturday, May 11th, between noon and 4, there is a alumni baseball game up at the high school. If you choose to attend, you can drive a brand new Dodge of your choice. Cost you nothing, and for every one that you drive, we get $20 that we will split between those three programs. So it's one of the most painless fundraisers that you can participate in. You stop in, you drive a car, we get $20. You can watch a baseball game, get a hot dog. So it's a pretty cool event if you would like to participate. Cool. So I just want to make that announcement. And also, for those of you that are wondering what happened to Mupu, it of course is back. So if you would like to buy a portion of the football field, on the 8th of June, we'll be putting a cow or cows onto that field. If the cow defecates in your square, you'll win $1,000. So it's one of our favorite fundraisers as well for the football team. $10 for a square, and it's all legal, and we have all the state documentation to show that. But anyway, you can contact me or anybody at the...
No animals were hurt in the...
No animals were hurt during the... but you can contact me or anybody at the high school athletic department, and you can get your Mupu. So
great.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Amy Butters. I'm here on behalf of the Ferndale School Board. And unfortunately, Chief Collins and Linda Jackson got to talk about some things that are a little bit more exciting going on over at the schools. But I wanted to come and talk to you about something that is also very important, maybe not quite as exciting, but what I'm here to talk to you about is our strategic planning process that we're undergoing on the school board. I would like to thank the people of Ferndale and the other surrounding communities for their participation so far in our strategic planning process. We've had small focus groups gather together and give input. We are about ready to end that phase of the process, and I know there is a meeting scheduled May 1st, which is Wednesday, a breakfast meeting, which I'm hoping all of you have already have on your calendar. It's a meeting of the elected leaders from our district, and so that's going to be our last focus group. After the focus group, the next phase is something called champions meetings, and I'm really bummed that I didn't bring any Queen music to to play for you to emphasize the next phase. The champions meetings are town hall style meetings, and they are open to anyone who would like to come. And those dates are May 8th, May 28th, June 6th, and June 19th. And that's all available on ferndaleschools.org. That information is available on there. These meetings are going to be super, super important for this strategic planning process, and I would really encourage everyone to please come and participate in that.
And Joe, we can put that on our website as well, and on the TV, on the cable to cross-promote that.
Yes, that would be fantastic.
I know you'd like all the input you can get.
We would. And you can come to one or two or all four if you'd want. There are going to be different topics at each meeting, so I really encourage everyone to participate in that. I also had a comment about the Blue Ribbon Commission, but I can hold that for later on in the agenda.
Don't mind. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do that. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Greg Pollica.
Good evening, Council. Greg Pollica, and I have my Ferndale Community Foundation hat on. Just want to let everybody know that the 2013 grant process has started. We are accepting applications from nonprofits in Ferndale or organizations that support Ferndale in some manner. We will be giving out about up to $6,000 this year. And you can go to our website, www.ferndaleCommunityFoundation.org. However, it is under construction. So right now, the next couple of days, you might see the old information. I'm hoping our web guy is watching this. So you can always email us at info@FerndaleCommunityFoundation.org. And the deadline for applications is Friday, May 24th. Thank
Excellent.
you.
I'm sorry, no, it's May 31st.
Oh, it is the 31st?
Yes.
Okay. Dan is our grants person, so he would know better than I.
It's not to interrupt, but.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Anyone else? I think we have time for one last person within our 30 minutes. Anyone else for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda. Next item of business would be the consent agenda. These are items that council considers routine, and we enact them in one motion. But let me read them first. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular and special meetings held April 8, 2013, and the special meeting held April 16, 2013. B, approval to adopt the resolution recognizing the Ferndale Community Foundation as a nonprofit organization operating in the city of Ferndale, Michigan. C, approval to allocate funds towards professional development training on May 3rd, 2013 for the City of Ferndale department heads in the amount of $2,500. D, approval to purchase 3 new Sound-Off Pinnacle EPL 9000 light bars from Synergy Wireless at a cost of $5,100 and to charge the expense to the motor pool. E, approval of contract with Safe Built for an on-call building department services and authorization for the mayor and city manager to execute the contract on condition that Section 12 of the proposed agreement be modified to indicate the initial contract year is May 1st, 2013 through April 30th, 2014, and that if mutually agreed upon, the city manager or designee may extend the contract in 1-year intervals for up to an additional 4 years. Item F, approval to adopt a resolution to permit Burdette Properties LLC to use and maintain the property which has the boundary wall at the former city impound yard. G, approval of the contract number 135066 with the Michigan Department of Transportation for streetscaping, asphalt resurfacing, and water main irrigation system work along West 9 Mile Road from Planavon to Pinecrest. And finally, approval of the bills and payroll is submitted by the city manager's office, subject to the review by the Council Finance Committee. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I would move to accept. We adopt the consent agenda in its entirety.
Support. We'll call that moved by Galloway, supported by Martin. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on the consent agenda? Council, is there any discussion, comments, questions on the consent agenda this evening? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Council members Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. The consent agenda is adopted. Moving on now to the regular agenda. Item A is the consideration of geotechnical exploration and engineering report for the district court. City Manager April, you're going to tee that up, right?
I am actually going to tee up the next 4, so we can talk about them all at once, and you can...
And then we can...
Boom, 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 boom.
Very good.
As you know, on November 26th, Council directed staff to keep moving forward with the renovations of the district court and the police department building. And again, to remind everyone that this has been 12 years coming. For the last 12 years, we have been putting money aside through fines through the court to address, to be able to address the capital improvements that were needed in the court and the police building. So with that, though, we are moving forward, and we have been pretty diligently since November 26th. And what you see before you is 4 more steps into getting us closer to renovated buildings. So the 4 items actually that you have before you, the first 2 are the first one being geotechnical exploration and engineering report, which is really to focus on the load bearings that we have within the building, as well as we are putting a small addition on the back, so when they have to ensure that when we go and they'll do borings and things of that nature to make sure that there's no unexpected things that we find underground, if you will. And then the second one is an environmental review. The building being as old as, both buildings being as old as they are, we need to check for asbestos. More than likely, we will have asbestos in both of those buildings, and we need to remove those appropriately. So both of those are before you for prep work, is if you will, to start the renovation project. And then the third thing before you is the lease to actually, because we are doing a complete overhaul of both buildings, for the most part, we need to relocate our employees. And so the Credit Union One has been an awesome partner in this, and they have 3 buildings right across the street from their headquarters, right here on East 9 Mile, and they've agreed to let us move in there just for the cost of taxes and utilities. So we can't thank them enough, so we'll be able to relocate 43rd District Court. We're still working through where we're putting the police department. Because we have to move dispatch, it's much easier to keep them here. So we might just put them in the down here in this lower level. But either way, we need both buildings. So, so their lease is there for your review and approval as well. They've allowed us to have the lease starting tomorrow, going through the end of April. However, they are allowing us month-to-month extensions after beyond April of 2014. And we are currently on track and on schedule. And we just had a meeting today, and they're really hoping that we can be in our new buildings again by May 1st. So
May 1st
that's pretty aggressive, but we're going to go with it. And then with that, as you can see, a lot is going on here. I added an extra agenda item today, which is the relocation expenses. It's going to be a lot of little things, and I don't want to keep putting emergency purchases on agendas. So what I've asked for, I worked with Dean Christ, if you will, is a blanket cost of $75,000 to relocate, starting from point A to getting them back in the building. We don't think we'll need that much, but we wanted to be able to move forward and allow me to approve the invoices to do these things, because it's many, many different things, everything from electricians to computer people to movers and things of that nature. But what I will do is every month we have a meeting, or every time we have a meeting, I will give any updates and formal approval. But because we do have a threshold of $2,500, we thought this was the best way to allow me to approve those invoices and then bring them to you after the fact. So we are getting very excited. This project is moving forward. We're at this point hoping to have everybody moved and in their new locations by July 1st. Abatements on both buildings will start the month of July, so taking care of any environmental issues that we have, with the construction starting in August. So we'll also be working as well. We're just now working through the pre-qualified. We're going to put that out for requests for proposals, and we'll make sure that the chamber is involved in that, so we get as many local participating construction companies that want to bid on our project, making sure that they're prepped and ready for it. So it's going well.
Excellent.
So those are 4 different agenda items, and you can ask me any questions as we go into each one. It's fine. I just thought it was easier to do it.
Yep, I think it's because they're all interrelated. Are there any questions of April? Then to have discussion, we would need a motion on the first item, which is the consideration of geotechnical exploration and engineering report.
I move to approve contracting with PSI to provide a geotechnical report in the amount of $2,650 and charged to the appropriate account.
Support. Moved by Piana, supported by Galloway. Any discussion on that item?
It's an appropriate amount for the level of service being provided.
That's not bad.
Indeed. Madam Clerk.
Council members Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. And now the next motion would be on the consideration of an environmental review for the district court renovations.
I would move that we approve contracting with AES for environmental services in the amount of $1,800 charged to 445-000-818.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Lennon. Any discussion on that item? Madam Clerk.
Council members Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. The next would be a motion, I would consider a motion for the consideration of a lease with Credit Union One for police and district court services.
I move to approve the lease agreement with Credit Union 1 beginning on May 1st, 2013 for the relocation of both the 43rd District Court and the Police Department for the purposes of the renovation project.
Support. Any comments on this item? I would just say, Credit Union 1 has been a great business partner and neighbor in Ferndale for many years, and increasingly so even lately. But this was a very generous offer to let us use the buildings across the street that they have for no rent, just the cost of the taxes and utilities. So just want to thank Credit Union 1 for making our lives just a little bit easier during this renovation and move. So thanks. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll on that item, please?
Council members Lennon?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. And finally, the fourth one, which I'm looking for. Here it is, the relocation expenses for court and police. Is there a motion?
I'll take that one. I move to approve a budget allocation of $75,000 for relocation expenses of the 43rd District Court and Ferndale Police Department, and authorize the city manager to approve invoices related to this expense. Budgeted funds will be taken from the appropriate account.
Support. Moved by Piana, supported by Martin. Any comments, questions on this one? Madam Clerk.
Council members Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That item is also adopted. Moving on to the next regular agenda, item D is the consideration of a monument renovation agreement with the Ferndale Memorial Association. And I want to thank our folks from the Memorial Association for waiting through a rather long meeting. But I think, Tim, are you going to come up and present on this item? I guess I'll introduce this item, if you don't mind, because we've been working with the folks from the Memorial Association for a little while now. As you may or may not know, we do have a veterans memorial area on Livernois in the boulevard there, just south of 9 Mile Road, and it's maintained with love and care by the Memorial Association in conjunction with the city, the DPW, which does the lawn mowing and the maintenance and the utilities and that sort of stuff. So it's been a wonderful partnership. But the folks from the Memorial Association are interested in doing some fundraising, and I think they're going to talk a little bit about the improvements that they would like to make there. And so in order to facilitate that, we needed an agreement between the city and the Memorial Association that outlined what the responsibilities and roles would be for each organization. And I want to thank the folks who have worked with us hard on that, and thank Dan Christ, who was involved in drafting this agreement, and turn it over to you to talk about what you envision there and what we're going to be doing this evening.
Good evening. Well, as you can see, our proposal there has got all our plans laid out. If you've been by the Memorial Mall, you may have seen we've already begun some work, thanks to the DPW, has been there to remove some of the rather large, old, ugly yew trees that were blocking the view from when we would have the parades. People found it rather difficult to see across and to see what was going on. But with the concept there, it's got everything new. We're taking out those yews, putting up some little fences. It's all laid out there, and it's going to be compliant with the ADA. So we'll have wheelchair ramps and everything, so that the veterans can come and get up there. And we're going to begin a fundraising project, selling bricks for the Memorial Mall. And I really just wanted to take this moment to thank the engineers who drew up the plans for us, Giffords and Webster, donating their time to design our renovation. City manager, Ms. Lynch, and Mr. Coulter and Mr. Christ, for your help with getting this proposal going, because it's been a long time coming. Lloyd, for your help with the pulling out our yews and getting this thing rolling. And I guess that's about all we have for this, unless you want to add anything.
Okay.
All right. And let me add this, too. It was a concern of the Memorial Association that we maintain the dignity and the memorial aspect of this. And part of what this agreement assured them, and we've told them in paper and we've told them in private, and I want them to know in public that it's the city's intention and good fortune that you are involved in helping us help you maintain the dignity of this space, and we look forward to working with you for many years to come. So thank you.
And we really, truly appreciate it. Thank you.
A motion would be in order first before we have discussion.
I'll move that we approve the agreement between the City of Ferndale and the Ferndale Memorial Association for the renovation of the monument located in the median, or the media of Livernois between Troy Street and Albany Street.
Support.
Moved by Lennon, Martin, supported by Lennon. Are there any discussions, questions of council on this item?
Long time coming.
It is.
I have one question, but I really appreciate what you guys are doing for this space and on behalf of the city. My question is, what was the design choice to remove the planter box and put in more brick? It says renovate existing planter box in preparation for brick inlay.
I can answer that because I'm get my fingers dirty. If you will, you can't really tell up there, but where the second layer of bricks will go is where the plants are now. We have designed to put another area on each side. We will build another area approximately 1 foot, 2 feet wide, where we will put in plants.
So the plants are really getting moved, not removed.
They are getting moved back.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we know people, well, we enjoy planting, and we know people like to put flags in that area for their loved ones, so that will be put in there. We aren't getting rid of all of them.
You put in another row of bricks in?
Yeah.
Well, it's unfortunate that we have to have another row.
Well, we have quite an interest of people wanting to put bricks in,
Right.
and we need to, where they exist right now, they need to be set better. They've shown their wear, they're sinking.
Right. Okay.
So we're going to use those two areas on both sides for bricks.
I know it's a little early, you're not taking donations yet, but I suspect that there'll be interest on the part of the community in supporting this, and so we'll work with you to promote that on the television and on our website, and however we can.
We have a brick committee.
You have a brick committee? All right, I love it. All right.
Yes, brick committee can contact
Harley Earl. We'll work with you to get that information out so that people at home can know how that they can contribute to support this project. It's about a $40,000 project. Estimated
between 40 and 60.
Between 40 and 60.
Well, we don't know till we get estimates in on what labor and costs are.
So we'll do what we can to help you promote that. Thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Madam Clerk.
Councilmembers Piana.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Galloway.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item that is adopted. Thank you, folks. Next item of business would be the consideration to create a Blue Ribbon Commission on Ferndale Parks and the appointment of its members. And that would also be one of my items. I announced this at the State of the City address about a week and a half ago, but, Ferndale is home to 15 parks and recreation centers and about 90 acres of recreation property here. And unfortunately, and Jill knows this all too well, no department has taken a greater cut in their budget as a percentage of their budget than recreation has over the last few years. And unfortunately, the budget isn't looking any better, if you heard our budget presentation earlier. So we have some obvious needs in our parks, and unfortunately not the resources that we would like to do the upgrades that we would like. So tonight I'm going to ask council to approve the creation of a Blue Ribbon Task Force on Ferndale Parks. And this group of people will have a simple mission, which is to go out and get input from the community on what they would like to see in the parks. I know a woman here was here earlier talking about dog parks. I got a feeling that's going to make the list, Jill, but we want to take some time, get the input from the community. And then the other important thing that this group is going to do is make recommendations on how we would pay for these upgrades. I've told them, don't assume that the city can help you pay for any of it. And it's a challenge, I know, but with sponsorships and corporate support and grants that they can find, they're going to go and help us identify funding for these improvements. So the other thing is I've asked them to finish their work by the end of this year so that we can actually begin to implement these upgrades in our parks by next spring. So it's an exciting opportunity if they do their work well. This group, if you approve it, council is going to be managed by Lloyd Curitin, our Director of Public Works, and Jill Manchik, our Director of Recreation. But it's really possible because of the volunteers who have stepped forward to serve on it. And I would like to name the people that I'm suggesting serve on this panel. It would be Jack Aronson from Garden Fresh Gourmet, Brett Talander, the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club of South Oakland County, Sean Butler, who's the Athletic Director and Assistant Ferndale High School Principal, Jeannie Davis, the President of the Ferndale Seniors Group and a member of our Ferndale Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, Kristen Spiller, the Recreation Department for the City of Oak Park. We're doing a lot more partnerships with them, and we want to pursue what more we could do. Greg Pollica, who's here tonight, he is the immediate past president of the Ferndale Community Foundation. And finally, Scott Helmer, who's the managing director of corporate finance and real estate syndications for Comerica Bank. The group is small by design, but I want our residents to know that they really do need your input. And so even if you're not on this, they don't represent every aspect of the community, but their mission is to talk to the community and get input from everyone. And so we will give you information soon on how you can contact this commission with your thoughts about what our parks need and could use. So stay tuned for more of that. So that is the idea behind the Blue Ribbon Commission. A motion would be in order to have a discussion.
I move to approve the creation of the Blue Ribbon Commission on Ferndale Parks to work under the direction of the directors of the Departments of Public Works and Recreation to gather input and ideas from the community on possible attractions and upgrades to the 15 parks and recreation centers in Ferndale, research funding alternatives, and report back to City Council with recommendations, and to confirm the appointment of Jack Aronson, Brett Tillander, Sean Butler, Jeannie Davis, Kristen Spiller, Greg Pollica, Scott Helmer to the Commission.
Support. Moved by Piana, supported by Lennon. Any discussion on that item? Questions?
Not yet.
Not yet.
They come back.
Awesome. All right, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Galloway?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you. That panel is created. Stay tuned for more to come. Finally, the last regular agenda item is the consideration of an amended parking enforcement hours. And I think, April, that's you?
I'm on deck again. As you know, when we started the new parking system, that we had worked through a lot of issues, and one of that's still an outlier is the lighting. We have 2 prototypes of lighting that have been placed in different locations, and I think at this point, staff has been looking at some changes that we want to make to some of the prototypes to make sure that we have the best quality product.
I have to apologize and interrupt for a minute. There was a member of the audience and also a member of our school board who wanted to talk about the parks. And you know what? I told you you would have an opportunity, and I totally went right past you. So, April, if you would just pause for one moment.
Yeah.
Amy, I'm sorry to do that to you.
That's no problem at all. It was just a really quick comment. I just wanted to thank the mayor for including somebody from the Ferndale schools on the Blue Ribbon Commission. I am really going to be excited to see what the commission comes up with, and I am just excited about the potential of the collaboration of the various groups of our community coming together in these times of no money to come together and think creatively about solving some of these problems. And I feel that our community, you know, when we reach out to our community like this, it gives them an opportunity to take ownership. And I'm super excited about it. And that was my only comment.
Thank you, and thank you for the involvement of the schools. We knew they needed to be involved, and the administration there jumped on it and gave us, I think, somebody who'll be a perfect member of the group, so.
Yes, I think Sean Butler we'll all have his phone number in our phones now for the several months as we want to give him all of our ideas for the commission. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy, and I apologize again for passing you over. All right,
Right, no
April,
problem.
sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. So as I was stating that before we start ordering the prototypes for the lighting solution, we want to make sure that it meets all of our needs and that we're putting them in the right location. So with that, we have been doing a rolling enforcement, if you will. So as it gets lighter, we extend enforcement. Because as you know, normal enforcement hours actually would go till 11 o'clock. So I'm asking that through June 1st that we move enforcement, which is now currently 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. to 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Through June 1st, and hopefully by June 1st we have a more idea of when the lights will get here, and then we can go on full on as it relates to enforcement.
So the gist is add one extra hour because it's later till 9 o'clock now.
Yes. And we'll change the signage, and we'll do all the social media and Facebooking and press releases to let people know that. But we actually have signs right on the machines, so we'll change those, which has been very helpful.
I would need a motion to consider this item.
I move to approve temporary parking enforcement hours to be from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday until June 1st, 2013.
Support. Moved by Lennon, supported by Galloway. Discussion or comment on this item?
Yeah, I understand what you're trying to accomplish. Do you want, does it me?
Go ahead. And then
I'm not going to support this because I think right now, like sunset's at 8:30. I think this is premature.
Oh, okay.
I would prefer we wait till June 1st to take this up and we can see the lighting. I know things are going better, but I still have safety concern issues, and my preference would be we not do this at this time.
Greg.
Yes, Greg Polika. June 1st is Ferndale Pride. You're going to have thousands of people coming down, and if you change that on the day of that event, that's going to be freaky for a lot of people, because all of a sudden they're going to be familiar with an old rate, and you're going to change it on a Saturday, actually. So maybe just a suggestion to change it on a Monday.
And what time does Pride go till?
9.
Till 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Well, but when they park, they'll, because you're suggesting that it could potentially go back to 10 o'clock on June 1st? Or no, I'm sorry, till
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
If we have the lighting.
But we're not making that motion tonight. Actually, so we're not doing the June 1st change tonight. We're only, the proposal is to change until 9 o'clock, starting May 3rd.
On May 24th, I think, is another meeting that I would have. By then I'd know where we're at with everything.
So we're not, I hear what you're saying. I appreciate the concern. We're not actually voting on the second change, just on what would be the first change.
Thank you.
What time is sunset?
Today it was 8:30. I looked it up. And I know it's going to progressively get later. Of course, it does all summer. I just think this is a little premature.
At 9 o'clock, it's still getting
pretty long.
Turn off the Weather Channel.
No, I know. I mean, sunset doesn't mean it's dark.
Oh, right.
Right.
I hear you.
I hear what you're saying.
I just don't want to take any chances.
I understand Councilman Martin's concern. I also know that we need to start trying to get back to normal hours. So I guess I'm comfortable supporting this, but I would leave it to staff's judgment that if it looks like it is dark and folks are struggling to, you can always move it. Well, you couldn't. You couldn't even roll it back if we did. No. Is there a way to word this so that you could?
I mean, I could just bring it back on May 10th.
Let's give you another 2 weeks.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll just do it on May 10th.
So we'll pull this now and we'll take this up
That's
on May
fine.
10th?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. So no action required this evening. Thanks.
Well, we had a motion on the floor.
Oh, we did have a motion on
So
the
we have
floor.
to vote that down.
Or
table it.
Or Dan, what's the procedure?
The motion was seconded.
And second, you
probably
can't.
should call for the vote, and if there's no action, then another motion to table it to the meeting on, did you say the 10th?
We need to call for the vote?
Yeah.
And if
If
our
it doesn't-
intent is to table it down, we should vote no on the
Correct.
motion. but the maker of the motion cannot vote no. Isn't that correct doesn't the maker of the motion have to support the motion?
No. That's
Under Robert's
Under
rules?
Robert's rules.
Check that out for me, Dan, but I think that might be true. All right, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Martin,
No.
Piana,
No.
Lennon,
No.
Galloway,
Allowed.
No.
Mayor Coulter.
No, thank you. All right, so that concludes our regular agenda item. The next item would be call to council. Police Chief Collins, you've been up twice. You got a third round in you? No, all right. Jill, anything from Recreation?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just have a couple announcements. Coming up on May 18th, we have 2 events. We will be hosting, for the second year in conjunction with the Ferndale women's varsity soccer team, our second annual Soccerama for our youth soccer league. All of our games that day will be held at the high school. Ferndale Soccer Boosters will be providing concession stand. The women's team will be out there running clinics for our players. They'll be at each game, refereeing each game. It was a great event last year, and we look forward to another great event this year. Also on May 18th, along with our Soccerama, we'll be hosting our annual bike rodeo. In part, we sponsor with the police department, fire department, and the Rotary. This will be held at the high school as well, from 10 to 2. The police department will be giving out free bike licenses. They'll be doing bike safety checks. Bike licenses are for Ferndale residents, and kids that bring their bike will be fitted for a helmet as well. So that's all on May 18th.
Excellent.
And then on Saturday, June 8th is our annual Trunk and Treasure Sale here at City Hall from 9 to 3. This is a great chance to clean out your closets and your garage, and any items that you're interested in selling, bring it on to the Trunk and Treasure. Applications are available on our website, ferndalerecreation.org. It's $15 per parking space. So anything you can fit in your space, you can sell. Along with the Trunk and Treasure, Fern Care will also be hosting their garage sale as well, same day from 9 to 3 in their parking lot. So that's it.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Jenny, anything from HR this evening? Derek, anything from Economic Development? Christina, anything else from the DDA this evening? Oh, yeah, we're going to take up that during April's, but anything other than that? All right. Lloyd, anything from DPW this evening?
Just a couple additional comments about the upcoming West 9 Mile project. We did have a pre-construction meeting at Gipple Webster's office in Birmingham. The contractor was there, MDOT was there, city engineers were there, some of the city staff was there, and it was very, very preliminary. Some of the work has not been scheduled yet, and a definite date has not been determined for the removal of the Detroit Edison streetlights. That is one of the first major steps that has to take place before work can start. The contractor did express an eagerness to start on the 13th. We had originally thought that they might wait till after Memorial Day, but at the meeting they said they wanted to get right in and get started. And so we're going to try to schedule the work so that they start on the water main, and the hiccup with that is going to be the Detroit Edison poles need to be removed before they can install the water main. And so we've been talking to Detroit Edison almost on a daily basis, and they've assured us that they're going to do the best they can, and we should have more information this Thursday. So in addition to that, each council meeting we'll be providing you with whatever information we can as this project moves forward. So, on a regular basis, you'll be seeing us and giving you updates. That was it.
And on that point, I was going to say, I don't know if people are aware, but Lloyd is going to be the sort of our overall project manager for this project. So we look forward to hearing lots of updates from you over the next several months. And you mentioned Memorial Day. This is going to reroute the end of the Memorial Day parade, is it not?
Yes.
What should people expect?
They should expect the route will continue as normal until it reaches 9 Mile and Allen, and then the route will be down Allen to Troy.
Okay.
And so they have been informed of the route change, and there'll be other things that happen as our normal downtown events. During this construction process, we're working with runners for the Rainbow Run and that sort of thing. So.
Okay. Thank you, Lloyd. Appreciate it. Joe, anything from your area this evening?
Mayor and Council, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the website. We do expect to finally launch the website in May. With budget behind us, we've been putting all of our concentration back onto the back-end development of the website. I do expect it to be completed in 4 weeks, and I just want to remind everyone that with the new website look will come a new domain. Our new domain will be www.ferndalemi.gov once launched, and we will be attacking the press and the public with a severe communication plan to let you know of all the changes and updates that you can expect on the website.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Joe. Sherilyn, anything from the clerk's department, huh?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
What? Oh, hi. Thank God I got Mike here. Chief Sullivan, I just looked right past you. Chief Sullivan, our fire chief, is sitting right there. Mike, easy. This is a G-rated show.
Yeah, I'm tiny and hard to see, Your Honor.
I'm sorry. Anything for the fire department?
We had a fire this afternoon, and it's worth telling the public about safety issues. People who still smoke have been discarding smoking materials on their front open porches in Ferndale, and this is about the 5th or 6th house fire we've had that's been caused by the discarded smoking materials in a plastic container catching their porch on fire, which has a chance to burn your whole house down, and it did 2 years ago. So I'm just warning people, if they're still smoking outside, maybe a container with water in it to discard their smoking materials, because old dry wood porches, the weather's right, the plastic heats up, next thing you know it melts and you have fire on your porch, and typically no one's home at the time the fire takes off. Police officer did an excellent job. Keith got there and pulled his extinguisher and knocked it down. It was just about to crawl up and into their attic, so house was saved today, but watch out with your smoking materials.
Great reminder, thanks. Jane Marie, anything else from the finance department this evening? All right, thanks. Sherilyn?
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
All right. April?
Oh, do I ever.
All
right. I got 3 things for you. First and foremost, I want to thank staff for the budget. This was a long 4 months. Feels like longer. I want to thank Jane Marie for helping us with the numbers and putting the detailed budget together. And I want to thank Joe for the budget book and helping try to articulate such a large budget and a lot of information into an easy read. And this is the second time we've changed it, and I would imagine there'll probably be some changes again next year. It's a work in progress. So thank you to all of them and to all of the department heads who worked diligently to bring forward their recommendations. The second thing I want to talk about is an update on the residential parking zone. We ended up doing the pilot's supposed to end this week, and we did a bunch of surveys and found that people still just are not really satisfied with the program. So staff wanted to take a little bit longer and address two of the key concerns were that they didn't feel enforcement was enough, and they didn't feel enforcement was long enough. So the chief and I and staff sat down and talked about what some of our options were, and especially with the new parking system and things of that nature, we're actually looking at enforcement in general and our needs there, but are looking at some ideas on weekend enforcement, things of that nature to really impact enforcement in that particular area, but also within those parking lots that abut that neighborhood. So we're going to go ahead and extend that pilot through the end of the year. And focus on how we're managing our enforcement, and then we're also going to extend enforcement to 1 a.m. Again, that's why we do pilots. We want to take a look and see what works, what doesn't, so that we can make changes fairly easy. So on May 10th, I'll bring a formal resolution with Dan Christ's help, to make that pilot go through the end of the year, and I'll be sending out letters to all of those residents yet tomorrow. They'll get to keep the same permit that they have. But it gives staff more time. You know, that's why we did those surveys, to find out what was working, what wasn't, and that's very much a common denominator. So more to come on that, but I just wanted to give council an update as I send out letters. I didn't want anybody to be caught off guard. And lastly, last week and again today, I sent and forwarded you materials from the DDA regarding their communication plan on West 9 Mile. This project is something that you will hear about every council meeting, as well as, weekly, as we keep you updated as much as possible. But one of the things we wanted to talk about is the communication plan that the DDA has provided. On Thursday, I sent over their actual plan as a whole, as well as some materials that they've already sent out and things like that. And today was a timeline that's, of course, able to move and mold as we see fit. So what we wanted to do is offer you an opportunity to ask Christina any questions, or DDA staff any questions, any concerns, things that we feel are missing, or just general conversation as it relates to the 9 Mile project.
Christina, thanks for hanging with us. I actually don't have a copy of the timeline that came out late today. Is there an extra one?
I do have a revised estimate.
Okay, cool.
That would be great.
It's just as we just flesh out more of the things kind of longer down the road, there's just more items that we're adding in as we're going, as we're discussing these items. A lot of the things that you'll probably see in that actually have already been completed in that first component. With that, preparing for the communication going out to all the businesses and residents regarding the upcoming timeline was what we have really been focusing on. And last week we sent out certified letters to businesses, and we do know that they have received them. There were only 2 out of I think approximately 70 some odd that went out, and we actually contacted those 2 when the gentleman doesn't get his mail at that. So we found that out and got that changed, and also then sent him an email regarding it. And then also one was a tenant had moved or was in the process of moving. So the tenant, it was actually returned because of the tenant. So we contacted the property owner to verify that information. So a residential letter also went out that was not certified, but it was a letter that went out, went over to 300 homes within numerous block area. We took it going about 4 blocks south of 9 Mile and 2 blocks north of 9 Mile, and then from Planavon over to Pinecrest, and actually just a little bit further west of Pinecrest. So trying to hit a good grouping of people who may or may not be impacted by traveling 9 miles either to and from their home. Yep. So, and I know that we received it because I received it the next day at my house.
Oh. Have people started calling you? And if so, what is their general concerns? Or
we really haven't gotten many calls from residents. What we have received are more some of the businesses that are just reaffirming timelines, reconnecting on some of the needs, and also confirming either if they're attending or either Wednesday or if they're coming on the 6th. We are actually making follow-up phone calls to the businesses and the property owners today and tomorrow and Wednesday to reiterate that and have that out there. We also have one final e-blast that will go out to them as well. And the last thing that we're gearing up on, and we're just kind of finalizing it, is a text messaging system. And the text messaging system will be for urgent matters, not for just general communication that will go out, because we don't want to bug people texting them all the time. Very sensitive to that. But many of the businesses and property owners were actually really pleased to hear as to why we would be text messaging them, and found that to be important. So we should have that all tied up on Wednesday. We just
and I think it's important for people to understand this is an MDOT project. So they're going to be last minute, oops, sorry, we're shutting the water off, we got, we don't have control of that. What we can do is try to communicate as quickly as possible
Absolutely.
what's going on.
Absolutely.
And that's very helpful.
Yep, and the contractors will also be responsible, and Giffords Webster will be knocking on doors when they need to actually physically get a hold of that property tenant on a very specific issue as well. So it won't be just dependent on an email or a text message or a phone call. I think both Lloyd and I felt really reassured with that meeting from the pre-con meeting that will happen. It was very, very much stressed with the contractors about the importance of this and that they keep all of us up to speed so that way we can be in the know. So if we get an additional phone call from someone who might not be within that block but maybe has a question, we can still answer it without having to really search it high and low.
So we all have this timeline, and you also received the communications plan. Are there questions, and we talked about this last time, but are there questions, comments, concerns of council regarding either the plan or the timeline?
I wanted to say thank you for putting this together. We asked for council asked for a communications plan at our first budget meeting, I think, and so thank you for pulling it together. But my general comment is I feel it's a little incomplete, and so I know that you guys are already underway in implementing a lot of these things, and the way that I think it's incomplete is that I kind of feel like your goals, strategies, and tactics and channels of how you're going to communicate are sort of all together where it doesn't make sense of what you're trying to tell each audience member. And so I guess my recommendation is that this needs some reorganization to make it clearer. And then when I look at the timeline, this timeline only goes to May, and then we go into weekly updates and activities. So I feel like this is phase 1 of the comm plan is launching and gets us to May 25th, but the project goes to November. So I'm just trying to pull it all together as a long-term type of approach, but this project plan just gets to phase 1 launch, in my opinion. And I think that's where I'm looking to have something a little bit more comprehensive in the comm plan that coordinates with the communications work plan that just talks about what you're going to do on a weekly basis after March 25th. So let me give you an example of why I'm asking for some of these things, because I'm trying to figure out what your intent is or what your outcomes are with some of your communication activities. And when I see that you're creating a whole new Facebook page for the project and you only have 60 people on there and you have 6,000 people on your DDA Facebook page, it's clear to me that you have to spend a large amount of time rebuilding an audience to get up to communicate about this project. And it seems like you're just spending more time doing something when you already have that audience of 6,000 people. So I'm just, with the comm plan, it explains your strategy of why you're using certain elements to do, and I think that's where I would provide where I think there needs to be some reorganization and sort of descriptions of what it just needs to be a little bit more clear, in my opinion.
Just to comment on the Facebook page, specifically, when you're looking at a very specific project, it is actually more based on public relations professionals. You'd actually create a separate page so that way you have a very direct audience that you're speaking to regarding those projects. Because what you want to do is make sure that you're communicating very detailed information on that page as opposed to on your general corporate page that might have a lot of messages going out there and a lot of people who don't want to read that and see that. So we're trying to steer more people over to that page who are going to want to have that information. And that will take a little bit of time, and the information has just begun to go out to the residents and the businesses within the area to get them on board, and partly with these meetings is to get them more actively on board as well. We also have to start populating more of that information to get more and more engaged just more often.
Right.
So,
well, your comm plan should explain that. It just doesn't be a bullet list of Facebook page, right? That's what a comm plan and a strategy says why you're doing what you're doing. Although I disagree, I mean, I think this project is really, I disagree with a dedicated Facebook page, but that's my own opinion. I'm not part here of putting this together. But that's kind of what I'm looking for in reorganizing this communications plan, just to make it, you know, make it sure that it goes beyond May 25th, that it's just...
So just so that they have sort of...
I'm going to have to sit down and sketch out what I'm thinking, because, I mean, I could give another example. It says, direct consumers to general information and educate them on general facts, and underneath is all distribute media kits. Well, your audience there is media. So I'm just getting confused about what the intent and purpose is. Work with media and story placement. So that's all. I just think there's some room for clarity and reorganization that can make this an easier read, so that we are sure that we are meeting the needs of all the audience members, and we're clear on what channels and what activities we're doing to accomplish those deliverables in a timely way. So, and I will work with April in order to provide that guidance to the DDA.
Okay. Other thoughts, comments, questions on either the plan or the timeline?
I just wanted to state also, as just as a reminder, as part of the ongoing communication that would be happening once the construction starts, and that's why when you look at the weeklies, it comes to the fact that on any given week, the construction is going to look different. The plan is going to look different. So we can't determine what is really going to be happening 5 weeks from now. We can only have the estimates based on the contractors and what our engineers have already told us. So taking that information, knowing that we're going to have weekly meetings with the contractors, we're planning to have those on Thursdays at 10 a.m. That was just set at the pre-con meeting. So Thursdays at 10 a.m. at the DDA office, a consistent place and location for people to come to, and the core group to come to and get the information that we know what will be happening then that next week. We'll also open at the end of that session for any resident or a business owner or property owner to come in and have a shortened, condensed, quick version of that meeting provided to them firsthand. And then on Fridays, taking that information and distributing that to all of our stakeholders in those various categories based on the content that is needed for them. And then by Sunday and Monday, it would actually be out to the media and on Facebook, so that it's actually out to the general public for the week that it's actually happening. So giving our businesses and our property owners a few days more notice than the general public on the important details that may affect their very own business and their staff that might be coming into business. So I hope that helps to clarify that component.
No, I think that's fantastic. I think that would be more reflective in the document if, you know, some of the changes Melanie's suggesting around, like, who's the target of that channel of communication and how that flows. Because the way you described it makes perfect sense to me, right? Yeah. I just looked for that to be more reflective in the document about who's the target of this versus this. Because, you know, you can turn that around in your plan and say, here's the strategy to communicate to residents, right? If you've got a column with the end user there and we can, you know, twist it every which way.
And it's hard to figure that out, which channels and tactics are a priority there. So I agree with the phased approach. I'm just looking for a longer phase, more phases than up to May going forward.
Yeah, like what you said was a really good story, and that's exactly it. I just think the document we publish out for the communication plan can reflect that with a little reorganization.
And I'm recommending this because I am I just want to make sure that we don't have the same parking communications crisis that we had. And so to me, this is the guiding light. And to me, this demonstrates confidence that we will not have that problem. I mean, we can't mitigate everything, and there's unknowns with construction projects, you know. Hopefully it won't be like find Indian arrowheads underneath there or something, right? I mean, you never know. You never know.
Pray there's not an Indian burial ground underneath.
Yeah, you never know.
Well, at least we have a way of knowing how to do it and handle it.
Pinecrest,
We'll just call Rochester. and have them
Pinecrest
really-
was an original Native American trail.
That's
So
right.
they're, just saying.
It is possible. So, thank
Further
you.
comments or questions on the
Thank you for all your work
plans?
on this.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. It's
You're
going to be an interesting time. It's going to be a challenge for our residents. We're not promising that it's going to be easy, but there will be one way, two ways traffic all the time, just down to one lane each way.
Yep, exactly.
So please understand and be patient with us as we improve West 9 Mile, and avoid it if you can.
No, don't avoid it. Come to our businesses.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Avoid.
Good. April, anything else?
No, I'm done.
Sure.
Literally done.
Thanks. Dan Chris.
Very briefly, Mayor, I will follow up on that question of Robert's
Please.
rules, but council's rules of procedure does provide that any council member may change their vote at any time prior to the results. So that really does amend the Robert's rules.
It does, so, okay. You're right. Okay. You're right about that, not about Robert's rules, but I'll let you tell me that in 2 weeks. Thank you. Councilman Martin.
No, just with my Ferndale Community Foundation hat on, the one piece that Mr. Nowacek failed to mention about cleaning the Ferndale up, and I think that was strategic on his end, is there's also a fundraiser for specific projects tied to that you can buy a raffle ticket to take the opportunity to throw a pie at Mr. Nowacek and myself. So the information's on the website, www.ferndaleCommunityFoundation.org, and we'll, at the event as well, we'll have the pie throwing, so. It's a mud pie, and I understand sales are brisk, so.
I bought mine. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Councilman Lennon.
I have nothing. Tonight, I'll let you talk about an event but I'm talked out.
Okay. Wow. All right. Councilwoman Piana.
Yeah, two things. I wanted to thank everybody who came out to participate in the 3-day design charrette for the Complete Streets. Was it last week? Last week, and the Woodward Alternative Analysis. We had lots of people come out and say what they wanted to see on Woodward. And with the Complete Streets, I'm pleased to have a preliminary report back from what I heard from the residents and the consultants who were sort of taking all of this feedback, is that people want wider sidewalks on Woodward, they want bike lanes or cycle tracks, they want more trees and plantings, and the most important is they want more crosswalks to have better and safer connections between the east and west side of Woodward. And so I think we'll see more of that come out in visual designs over the next phase of the project. So I'm really excited that people are participating and coming out and saying really how they want to change Woodward to improve the community. And then, Joe, if you launch that website in May, I mean, I will take you out anyway for a beer. That site is so long in the making, but I will celebrate by taking you out for a beer. I know it's hard work. Well, you'll have to do it after hours.
Thank you. Councilman Galloway.
Just one thing, the Fern Cares 5th Annual Dinner is this Thursday, May 2nd, from 6 to 9:30 at the Ukrainian Cultural Center. You can get tickets at ferncare.org. Great organization here about a lot here. So that's it for this evening.
Thank you. I do have a few items, actually. As Councilman Lennon was saying, he and I represented the city last Saturday at the memorial dedication for Matt Leach, Staff Sergeant Matt Leach, who passed away in Afghanistan last year. And it was a moving and beautiful ceremony. And if you get an opportunity, the monument is at the Berkeley American Legion Hall, which is on 12 Mile, just west of Woodward, and it's beautiful. Not only was the monument beautiful, but they put a bench in front of it, which they call Jack's Bench, because he has a child, a son, and it's a place for kids who can go and reflect on lost parents. It's beautiful and moving, and if you get a chance, go there and check it out. A couple other quick things. Been hearing a lot from residents on East Breckenridge about parking and the fact that some valet stuff is going on in their neighborhoods. I want to assure them that our chief and our police folks are looking into that, and there's probably going to be some changes made to the way that we're doing valet parking for the residents on East Breckenridge who are tired of all the cars interfering in their lives. So stay tuned, but we've heard you, and there'll be some changes coming. And finally, last week we did a meeting Derek helped organize at the library about the changes coming to Livernois, and I'm really excited about that. There's going to be more opportunities to find out about it, but if you haven't heard already, we're going to reconfigure Livernois to be two ways. We're going to add bike lanes and on-street parking to help, and we've already done the rezoning to multi-use that will help encourage, we hope, galleries and studios and cafes and that sort of thing. But really nice changes coming to Livernois, so stay tuned or call City Hall if you want to get more information. And that's all I have. And so thanks, everybody, for coming. Meeting adjourned.